Yo, it's centralparkhiphop.com. Huh. Kick it. Boom. Greetings. Peace, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Art of Hip Hop podcast. My name is Derek, and I am joined today by Jex the Joker.
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
All right. And 3-2.
What's up, y'all?
What's
Derek.
up? All right. So, this episode, we are going to discuss the idea of culture. Jex, one of your favorite topics.
Yes, sir.
And how the core four elements of hip hop all came together. I don't know if y'all have ever thought about this at all, but like how or why is it just like these four artists? Hip hop has expanded into acting, but actors aren't part of the core four artists.
Yeah.
Like if you go to art school, they teach poetry. Poets
Mhm.
aren't a part of the core four. Sculpting and photography. Photography is really essential to hip hop, but they're not part of the core four. So
Mm.
that's what we're going to be exploring today. Have you guys ever given thought to any of that? Because I want to get your thoughts on
In
it later.
fleeting moments, but I don't think I've ever sat down and had a deep dive into conceptualizing it.
I kind of
Gotcha.
have. I've always thought about that from time to time whenever like hip hop get to my mind,
All
and,
right.
and the correlation of it, especially when watching documentaries on hip hop.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's my thoughts, and then after my opening statement, I'd like to get your guys' thoughts.
All right.
So let's go. A simple definition of the word culture is the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. So this would include the codes of behavior, dress, language, religion, rituals, art, etc. So why do we sometimes call hip hop a culture? Remember we all gave different definitions a couple episodes ago. For me, even more puzzling again is how all of these core four artists even came together as like a social group. And I have a metaphor for like how this happened. If you imagine hip hop as like a molecule or a group of atoms connected by chemical bonds, everybody knows how to make water, H2O.
Yes.
Take two atoms of hydrogen, throw in one atom of oxygen, connected by science, and boom, you got water, right? So in this way, the core four artists are like the atoms coming together to form this molecule called hip hop. But what is the chemical bond? What is the thing that binds them all together that wraps them up in one bundle? And a lot of people might say it's the music, but again, those people, I promise you, have never talked to a graffiti artist because graffiti artists, they're just a whole different animal.
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue that the thing that holds these core four artists, that form hip hop together, is the party. Now, follow me on
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Herc, he became a hood superstar, and his parties got so popular that he started holding them in the parks. He's not the only one, like you talked about 3-2, but he was just the biggest name at that time. And
100.
those parties attracted the core four artists of hip hop. Other DJs came, they wanted to scout the competition. So they were at the party. Herc and all these other DJs used MCs to add flavor. Like MCs started out as performance enhancers for the DJ,
Yeah.
right?
Coke
So
the
now,
Rock.
yeah. So now you got MCs that are hanging out. Break boys and girls, they came to dance. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And graffiti was just like the unofficial font for all of it, for like the
Yeah.
flyers and especially the clothing and stuff like that. Graffiti was just ubiquitous. Like even Herc was a graffiti artist. Like
Yeah.
everybody did graffiti, right?
Yeah.
The crowd showed up just to have like a good time, escape from ghetto life for a little while. And
Definitely.
that's why I say that it was the party that bonded all of these artists together.
Yeah.
It was the
Yeah.
glue that held them together initially. It's what brought all four of these artists together and helped them form the foundation and push hip hop forward.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say that it's still the party today, but we're going to talk a little bit about that in the open comment section. But if you could somehow take like a holistic emotional snapshot of that park jam, any of those park jams back then, I would say that you would capture everything that is hip hop. You're going to get the behavior, the dress, the language, rituals, likes, dislikes, the joy, the pain, dance, music, rhymes, and the wild style. And most importantly, you would get the fun of these highly creative artists that made everybody want to hang out and just wanted to never. That's why their parties went to like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning because it was just so creative, so fun. They were truly doing it for the culture back then. So, I'm okay with people referring to hip hop as a culture, like you do, Jex,
Right,
if
right.
you want to consider it like a way of life. But I still prefer my other metaphor where I see it as like a treasure chest, a collection of the collective art of these four artists. But,
100.
we can trip on that some other time. But meanwhile, what we're doing here, what you guys do as rappers, as MCs, I believe we all do it for the culture.
Mhm.
Cool. So that's my opinion of why these core four artists came together, why they formed the foundation of hip hop as it moved forward. Floor is yours. I'd like to get your thoughts on how you think it all came together. And Jex, let's start with you.
All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate y'all. Episode 4, definitely a round of applause for that. So, the culture of hip hop, man. Culture, if we know where culture comes from, it comes from pain and what we go through in life. And from the history of it, we see that those jams that started because federal funding ended with school programs and music programs that were in the city. So the youth had nothing. That's where Cool Herc and all them thought about making these parties before to go to school so it could be an easy way to go to school. They could talk about it. And it was a success, as you said. And throughout those times, that's when he brought the MC along. The breakdancers came along, you crazy
Yeah.
legs, rock steady. And then the graffiti also came along. After the parties, they be so hyped. The graffiti artists be outside. It would before it was something like people would use it as art, like Keith Haring did, or
Mm,
what was the other artist name? Basquiat was one of them. These people brought the graffiti but it wasn't mainstream. It was considered a crime because
yeah.
it was vandalism. It was
Still
all
is
over
actually.
still is, right, right. Unless you get a paperwork saying you could do a
Yeah.
mural.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's crazy because it bugs me out in Rhino District. There's so many graffiti murals everywhere. And
See, I think that's a
it's
distinction though,
crazy.
right? Murals and graffiti. I mean, we're gonna have a couple of episodes covering graffiti, but I,
Yeah.
I kind of think there's a distinction between a muralist and a graffiti writer.
It's just weird because it's like
Yeah.
this that it's a place. Okay, the group of society of people who were saying it was a crime
Hmm.
now are accepting it that it's in a place where you don't see a lot of our people would be. And
Hmm.
that's the messed up part. But yeah, that's how I feel like hip hop came along. I just wanted to mention that because it's such
Gotcha.
like people went to jail for this. I talked to graffiti artists, one out here, who I met from the Bronx. And
Uh-huh.
he's a graffiti artist back in the day, in the
Right.
'70s and stuff. So it was a crime, man. But it was the love and the passion of just expressing yourself because that's
For
what
the
it
love.
was.
Yeah.
It was a competition even with the graffiti. You
Yeah, it
drawing the
was.
biggest name. That's showing that you the man. Nobody, and if somebody go over it, they better than you. So yeah,
Mm.
it's dope.
So 3-2. What does the phrase "do it for the culture" mean to you? It's kind of an ambiguous phrase, but
It is an
I've never
ambiguous
really.
phrase. I look at it as doing something to help the progression of the culture move forward.
Hmm.
So, like if let's say you're kicking a type of song, like a style of rap or whatever that may be more traditional because you're doing it for the culture. Say you're performing at a b-boy jam or whatever, so that you can be part of, or somebody's throwing a b-boy jam, even doing it for the culture for the sake of keeping hip hop moving forward.
Right, right.
Like whoever, like say you're going out and bombing still and bombing up your tags and stuff like that, and regardless of the level of skill that you have, just for the sake of doing it because you're a hip hop, you're doing it
Mhm.
for the culture and things like that. So
Mhm.
like,
Mm,
yeah, I look at it like within the ambiguity as just a loose phrase for doing something, some form of art or something that's connected to the culture for the sake of the longevity and progression and sanctity of the culture itself.
mm,
Going back to the quote that we covered in our first episode, that artist, that Canadian artist, and she's one of the things I really gravitated to in her quote was that you should make art for yourself, not for social media, not for
mhm.
other people, but just do it for yourself.
Right.
Mhm.
So that would, and again, she's not law. Her way of thinking is not law, but do you feel like you owe the culture something, or do you just create, put it out there, and let the chips fall where they may? Or do you sometimes, as artists, create things expressly not for people inside the culture,
Mm,
but for people outside of the culture as a way to like represent or
right.
bring some light to or bring some attention to or to address issues? Do you do art for the culture or do you just make art for yourself? Jax, how about you?
Both. Depends on what I'm writing on also, but definitely for the culture first and then for
Hmm.
myself. If I'm upholding myself as an MC, then I feel like I need to uphold myself as doing certain things for the culture as my opinion is how I go on with my pen game and how I write and how far I'm gonna bring it to being one of the best. So
Hmm.
that's how I see it.
Got you.
Yeah,
3-2.
the culture's real.
Both, mostly because I look at myself. I feel strongly that I am an embodiment of hip hop. Like I feel like I am hip hop. So when I do music and when I do my art, I'm doing it for myself. But doing it for myself is doing it for the culture.
Hmm.
Mm,
I feel like they're intertwined, and I feel like by doing my art for the culture, even while doing it to make it more perhaps accessible for people outside of the culture, I feel like
Hmm.
that's a similar way of how you might take a museum exhibit and how museum exhibits may
That's a
tour
good
around to
example.
different cities and
It's a
towns
good
and
example.
countries, and so people from outside of that culture have a chance to experience a piece of the culture. And
mhm,
so I feel like my artwork would be for those who are also hip hop embodiments. They feel what I'm doing and they understand what I'm doing as part of the culture. And for those who aren't, they can look at it from the outside looking in as a brief experience or a brief taste of what hip hop culture is,
Hmm.
what it sounds like, what it may look like, what it feels like, without actually being part of the culture themselves.
Sure.
can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mhm.
Speaking about this topic, it reminds me of a line by KRS-One I wanted to quote in my philosophy, where he says, all my people, I'm to reinforce stereotypes of today, like all my people eat chicken and watermelon, tote broken
Okay.
English and drug selling. So he's basically saying like I'm not the type of rapper that's gonna just sell out and just make it seem like this is what we do.
Mhm.
Hmm.
We're also philosophers, we're also teachers, we're also revolutionaries. You know
Hmm.
that keeping doing it for the culture because I feel like even the term now "do it for the culture" has became negative in
Mhm.
our
I'm about
community.
to speak on that myself.
Go ahead. I'd love to start it off, brother.
So I think probably for me, it started out with Jay Z.
Mm,
Uh, Jay
mm,
Z was the first one who, well, maybe not the first one. Okay, you have culture bandits, right? Those are the ones who are explicitly not a part of hip hop. They see it; it's a money grab. They're just doing things trying to exploit the culture. Culture bandits, right?
Mhm.
mm,
But you also have bandits within hip hop, very talented. And Jay Z was like the first one I saw, or maybe he's just the first one that really irritated me. But you
Him and
know,
Diddy, huh?
his the excessive commercialism that he pushed, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
That was, I thought, detrimental young young folks. I really thought it put and I think he was doing it simply to sell product. I think he was just as guilty as culture bandits who come from outside of hip hop
Mm-hmm.
and try to take advantage of it, use it as a money grab. Here's an artist inside of hip hop with a very elevated platform, and I thought he was really using that platform to just extract money out of us with the clothing and the line. And I know he's not the first one to do it. I know I can't think right now of some examples of earlier people, but Jay-Z was the first one to really kind of like irritate me on the capitalism. He tried to capitalize on hip hop from within the culture. I didn't like that, right?
Okay, okay,
The other one that really irritates me to like no end was Dr. Dre.
yeah.
Dr.
Wow.
Dre's, when they would always talk about, no, I'm just like CNN street reporters on reality rap, and I saw cats get beat down by the cops because they were trying to keep it real, listening to, getting pumped up, hyped up off of F the Police, right? That was their hype up song. Now they ready to go out here, do what they do. And I seen the blowback from that, right? Dre himself, none of them cats was street. But Easy was street, but none of them other cats was street. Ice Cube, Dre, none of them cats, right? And they portrayed
They say
this,
MC Ren was street.
yeah, I guess. But you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
they portrayed this gangsterism to such a degree that I saw the effects of it in real life, and I'm like, none of these cats are like that,
Mhm.
but they are benefiting financially from this. I'm like, you're just as bad as an external culture bandit. You're an internal culture bandit. So you say you're doing it for the culture. You say you're trying to do it to
Yeah.
uh, help Black people with entrepreneurship or advance Black businesses, things like that. Now you're some money grab. And for the gangster rappers who were, studio gangsters and things like that,
Mhm.
it's another form of a money grab. You're just trying to further your own career. You're not really, there really are gangsters who rap. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, like the you have to be aware of internal culture bandits too.
That's
So
crazy. You brought up Dre,
everybody who
man.
says they're doing it for the culture, you just got to be careful about that.
Yeah. It's crazy how
And
you bring up Dre and NWA on that level too, because I feel like they're one of the first artists and albums to come out after a certain meeting where it was explicitly told that these execs hire more gangster rap
mm,
artists
mm,
instead of the conscious rappers and shit.
mm,
It's a supposed meeting between private prison companies
mm,
and the stockholders and then the record execs because they understood the power of who brought it. I think Lazy Bone or Crazy Bone brought it up in one of his podcasts.
mm,
And yeah, they were saying that it was brought together in 1991, early 91. And then the album that was so crazy by NWA where they changed their whole shit from Straight Outta Compton was Niggas for
yeah,
Life.
yeah,
It was talking about raping prostitutes
yeah.
and
It's because Cube left. They didn't have a good writer in the
thing
group anymore. They didn't know what he's talking about.
exactly. So they exact not real, and that's real. And but that was
Yeah,
the start of it. So yeah, they are money grabbers. They're culture vultures as well.
yeah.
And
And
they'll be falling soon. You see what happened to Diddy.
oof. Um, there's another aspect of do it for the culture that I go back and forth on. I'll give you an example. This podcast right here. None of us we ain't getting paid, right?
Mhm.
We're doing it for the culture. We're doing it because we feel like the topics that we discuss should be preserved for posterity.
Yes.
Okay, so that people who come after us, who might have an interest in these topics, have access to our thoughts. We're doing it for the culture. The culture, I guess, almost like any other social group, will ignore, minimalize, dismiss, diss you. right?
Mhm.
And you really have to be sturdy. You have to have thick skin sometimes to survive hip hop culture because hip hop
Mhm.
culture can be very, it can be rough. It can be lonely. It can be critical. It can be dismissive. It cannot be your friend, right? And when you sit back and at those times and you're like, man, well, I did this and I did that. I was trying to advance, blah, 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 blah. I was trying to help out. I was trying to make things better. And then you'll get the blowback from the other side. That's when you really have to question, am I doing this for the love or am I doing this for some other benefit, right?
Mhm.
And that'll test your commitment to this culture. And mine has been tested. I'm sure yours has been tested over the years. Everybody's commitment to this culture will be tested if you stay in it long enough. But
Mhm.
that's not unique to hip hop. That's universal to anything. So, when you say you do it for the culture, you got to do it, I think, with the expectation of no benefit in return. Because if you're expecting some benefit, if commercial, monetary, otherwise, if that's why you're doing it, you will be disappointed. And maybe you should get out of the culture. Maybe you should just get out of the way if that's really, where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Because I get frustrated with what's the best way to say it? I get frustrated with the community that is demanding that I accept or create or give, but there's no support in return.
Mhm.
You know,
That's not even hip hop culture. I think
that's right. It's not
that's
even
a
hip hop culture.
psychological stigma in our
Yeah,
people's society in
yeah,
America. In
yeah.
America.
That's absolutely right. It's not unique to hip hop. So the whole do it for the culture thing, to me, it's a double edged sword. I certainly have done and continue to do a lot of things just because I love hip hop, right?
And you love your
But
people too.
most of the time,
Cause ain't the culture the people? If you think
yeah,
about it, even the
yeah,
people we consider enemies, our words
yeah,
hopefully could change their mindset. It's the
yeah,
culture. Yeah.
yeah. It's just a personal rant of mine. You get really tired of the demands put on you by this culture, but sometimes the culture doesn't support you. So, you do it for the culture, do it for the love. Don't do it don't do it expecting benefits to necessarily come your way. That's the only advice I can give people.
Mhm.
Anyway, let's move on to another question. I have another question for you guys. Creatives evolve. You guys as artists evolve all the time. So does culture. Culture evolves, changes, and things like that. In what ways have you seen the hip hop culture evolve and change during your lifetime? 3, 2. How about you?
I think that we've seen shifts in priorities as the culture has gotten older. I could use an example of in Common's song "I Used to Love Her,"
Mm,
and each phase where he talks about how her or hip hop has changed and like started from like being on the block to becoming like Afrocentric and pro black to like
mm-hmm,
realizing that that was out of style and starting to become a gangster and all that stuff. And like every phase that he's talking about her is referring to like the new phases that become the more popular versions of hip hop. And
right.
uh, I was just scrolling trying to find because when you started talking about NWA and even Jex, when you mentioned Lazy Bone talking about it, I also there was an
Mhm.
episode of Drink Champs where Special Ed was talking about how NWA he attributes a lot of
Yep.
like the
Yep.
main shift being
Uh,
when NWA became prominent and
mm-hmm,
popular, and that
Mhm.
became like an overall. That's where like the main overall shift came from it to
mm-hmm,
it being about like culture and knowledge and pro blackness and all that to being street shit and gangster shit and like that
mm-hmm,
being what
Yeah.
everybody focused on and then that being what they chose to commodify business
mm-hmm,
wise
Mhm. Yeah.
and the people who followed the culture followed right along with it to where there wasn't even a lot of pushback to the point where when you put the people those of us who would push back or those who would say that this isn't it this ain't it were somehow the ones being told that they were the ones that were selling out or that they were the Uncle Toms or whatever because
mm-hmm,
they weren't they weren't following in line with the
Right.
pro gangster movement and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
With the popular trend.
Right, right.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's evolved in a lot of ways positively. I do think that it's dope that it has become a main source of us being able to, as a culture, as a people, be able to, like, there's so many black millionaires and
Hmm.
creatives that have been propelled to top level. Like, regardless what you feel about Jay-Z and his music, the position that he's in now
Hmm.
happened because of his participation in hip hop as a culture. There's no way that if he
Correct.
just stayed on the corner doing what he was doing, he would have
100.
even had an outlet to become what he is now.
Right.
And so I
Right.
feel like in the way that we've been able to, eh, various people within hip hop have been able to put a stamp on hip hop in various other genres, modes of business, entertainment that have nothing technically to do with hip hop. I feel like is due to the evolution of hip hop and the way that it's been able to be integrated into other things. You can call that a
Mm,
pro,
That's
you
true.
could call it a con. I know that a lot of people who have bank accounts that have several zeros in it would definitely consider it a pro.
Yes.
Also the way that also the way that we've just been able to, hip hop has become a conduit for cultural exchange. And when you look
That's
at
yes.
true. Right.
Yes.
Right.
how many different cultures have been linked together through
Overseas.
the culture of hip hop
Yeah.
in every mode, I feel like that's a huge plus, a check in the plus category in terms of hip hop's
Yeah.
evolution.
It's when you said that, the thought just popped in my mind about, I forgot who mentioned it, about not who's the greatest rapper of all time, but he was like, who's the most well-known, beloved, popular rapper of all time, and it might be Snoop, because
Hmm.
you've got people who can't speak English who can say Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
You know, they know nothing about America, but they know him.
They know
Like
Snoop. Yeah. Yeah.
he's hopped the borders of America, like you said, cultural exchange. He's truly like an international figure.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, and it's good for Snoop, and it's also good for anybody in the wake of Snoop's popularity, who
Hmm.
can benefit from that. So yeah, it has evolved and gone and turned into a cultural exchange mechanism. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Jex, how have you seen hip hop evolve?
The flow. I was born in '93, so that was how old now? 20 years of hip hop already.
Hmm.
Man, from what I've learned of the past before I was born and what I've seen, I was raised in New York, so I've seen the change of Biggie hat popping and the West East Coast be Biggie, Nas, and like I remember certain things like '98 especially. I remember DMX, Jay Z. That's when Jay Z really started capitalizing that time. I have a feeling that's when you started getting annoyed when he came out with Hard Knock Life.
No, I liked Jay Z's an incredible artist. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Yeah,
he got game. His pen is top shelf. Don't get it twisted. I can't
right.
argue or knock any of that. It's just I just thought he turned into a culture bandit.
Mm. I see what 3-2 I say it's a pros and con of
Mm.
capitalizing off of it or doing it for the culture. It's evolved in good and bad. But as an MC, I want to specifically bring up something that I known and see and the first beef between Busy Bo no, not Busy Mo B, Busy B Starsky and Cool Mo D that was ever on
Mm.
wax, right? With Cool Mo
Mhm.
D getting that Busy B Starsky because Busy B Starsky said he was the best one. He always won championships at Harlem World, that competition, whatever, right? But Busy B was the MC, the boom, but the bond, the bang, hey, ho, chants and all that. Cool Mo D was more the MC. He was the,
Mhm.
and that's where you get that competition, and people started changing up how they write,
They did. They did.
Hmm.
They
from
did.
that.
Yeah.
And then you have people like Rakim, KRS, Big Daddy Kane, and then you see evolution in that. But there was some sort of competition that bred that.
Hmm.
Sure. There was. Yeah.
What evolved was, which I hope comes back, is the competition.
People sleep on Kool
Mm,
Moe Dee, but Kool
mm,
Moe Dee, his pen is incredible too. It was.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, him and LL had a battle that kind of push that away. But
Mm.
LL go.
Uh,
Beside all that though, that evolution, I think that was the biggest downfall. That when it comes to the writing and music and everything, everybody wants to sound the same and dumb it down, and
Mhm.
and nobody wants to. Everybody's sensitive; they don't want to compete. People get too sensitive and compete, and then it turns to the guns because
yeah,
that's what the
yeah,
culture has put out actually.
yeah.
Mhm.
And these kids do now. You see with drill rap and all that shit, which is crazy. It's not even a competition with the rap no more. It's with the in the streets after. So,
That's
you
a
know.
good segue to my last question for you guys is, has the evolutions that you've seen and witnessed and experienced, has it changed your art? Have you changed the way has it changed your pen at all?
Mm,
Have you gone and either tried to, have you noticed a new trend and be like, oh, that's interesting. Let me try to, you know, not hop on that train, but let me try to participate in that
mhm,
stream? Or have you seen hip hop change and be like, yo, definitely gonna leave that alone. I'm just gonna stick to my lane. I'm gonna, do do what I do and let that go. And if that goes on, then God bless. But has it changed? Have the changes that you've seen and experienced changed your personal art? Three,
mm,
two.
I wouldn't say so. I'm one of those, like, I stay in my lane for the most part. I feel like there's with anything, there's like a constant, and then there's things that fluctuate around it. Like if
Mm-hmm.
there's a constant line, like I feel like there's certain, especially when it comes to being an MC, there's certain lines where, for example, just the availability to do to wrap your bars in a way that's like, on beat and within a certain cadence and within a certain having a certain lyrical ability where you can infuse, metaphors and similes and things
Mm-hmm.
like that in a way that you can paint a picture, is a
Mm-hmm.
constant. And then
Mm-hmm.
within that or around that, there's different ways that it fluctuates. So, right, like there's the copy and paste, like dumb it down, everybody doing auto tune, everybody doing the exact same thing that we're on right now. There was a time
Right.
before when it was like everybody rapping like Bone Thugs for a while and
Yeah.
everybody trying to chop. There was a while where at the very beginning when everybody was very simplistic with how they're rhyming, like Jex was talking about before that battle that caused people to start changing up how they write. So I feel like within every era or decade or a couple decades, styles change, modes
mhm,
change. Also, it comes with a level of, I guess, accessibility. I feel like one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons why we've kind of hit a commercial downturn in terms of hip hop. Underground has always been super elite, I feel like, in terms of
Yeah.
lyrical ability, lyricism, and
Right.
like differences in
Quality.
subject
like
matter and
even
things like that.
artistic range,
Right,
even
artistic
artistic
range,
range. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I feel like for those people who don't have any type of, like, a low level of creativity, but they want to be able to rap, so they
Mm-hmm.
pick the easiest thing for them to do. They pick the easiest type of beat to rap on. They pick
Mm-hmm.
the easiest gimmick that they can pick on that they feel like will give their song more listenability, i.e., auto tune, for example,
Okay.
because autotune started off as a tool and then it ended up, like, I feel like T-Pain was probably the first one that actually like used it in its exaggerated form as his own style, and then people
Mm-hmm.
started
Right.
using that as a get a hit quick type of scheme where they could all
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
do that, and suddenly, like, it was every song that had autotune on it was a bop. And now you have a lot of
Yeah.
artists that don't know how to make a song without it,
Right.
Hmm.
and don't
Right.
and if you do strip away the auto tune, it exposes their lack of skill outside of that. And
Yeah.
so I feel like there's that right now. So that's what a lot of people who are using who lack the talent and creativity. I'm not saying everybody
Mm-hmm.
that uses auto tune lacks talent, but I'm saying that for a lot of people who don't have talent, that's like a crutch that they
It's a
use.
crutch. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like, but for me, it hasn't changed that because I've never really been into autotune, and I feel like one of the things that I look forward to with me is just finding new topics that I can rap about and challenging myself to make meaningful, dope lyrics based on something that may be out the box that average people may not even think to rap about.
Got you. Jax, I'm coming to you, but 3-2's comments made me. I have two examples of how I've seen hip hop evolve. One of them is technology,
Mm-hmm.
similar to what Tech was saying. So I'm gonna use it as a springboard to ask you this question, especially as an MC, because from what I understand, I'm like I said, I've never been an MC, but I know there was like at one technology has really changed over the decade, probably more rapidly than even I know. I know at one point to get on, you had to do like mixtapes. That was the jam.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went through the SoundCloud era, and then you went through is it the YouTube era? Where we at? What era is it? I mean, how does technology, the access to technology, change just in since you've been getting down? And what era are we in right now? Are mixtapes dead? Is that over? I don't even know.
Nah, that's part of it. I think it's we're in the DTC, a direct to or DTS, direct to or DTC, direct to customer, where people are actually making their own websites and pushing their own stuff. The DSP, the platforms like Spotify, Apple, all that, which are label backed, which I want to bring up with also elaborate on with what 3-2 was saying and how this shit changed is, the labels killed that then they put in their appointed gatekeepers of who they have on the radio station. Like Fun Flex and Ebro are huge for that in New York. That's why it's sad with them not playing New York artists who are talented, but they playing all this down south shit. And it's not even being mad at down south. It's just how the labels push it out and how they're trying to
Yeah,
push out
yeah,
what they want. And that's where that lack of creativity comes, is whatever the label tells you to put out, and
sure.
then so
Yeah,
so being lazy and all that shit with your creativity you're gonna do because it'll be
yeah.
easier as compared to back in the day where you couldn't get in the source. You would, if you gave a album to the source, they're gonna rate it, 2 mics if the shit is trash.
Mhm.
Your career's over. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that shit's crazy. What was it? And the question that you did ask before that with the technology, I know. Yeah, like I said, we on the DTC. I think that's helped a lot with the technology. I think for the industry, it's killing the industry. For independent artists, it's helping them. But it's
Okay,
but DSPs, digital streaming platforms are, I feel, a robbery for independent artists.
okay,
It's just a tool to get your shit out. But if you're trying to monetize and make money, it's a robbery.
okay.
And again, the labels are backed up behind
Can
that.
I
So
can I rip my CD player out of my car? I can just throw that thing away.
nah,
That's
keep it.
over.
Keep it if you want. Why not? Or get another radio. But I mean, that's nostalgic. Why
No,
not?
not a radio. CD player. CDs is dead.
Yeah, yeah. You gonna. It's funny seeing people still pass their mixtape out in Times Square
Yeah,
when I was there last year because it's like nobody got CD players right now.
it's like the physical medium. That's just over with, right?
But
Nobody does that anymore.
but what's no, I can't even say that because some artists, especially these artists who have like 30-year anniversary albums that come out with the whole on wax, they're coming out with new wax. So they
Mm-hmm.
have albums that are out now, like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick was on a
Yeah.
12-inch.
Okay.
Um, that's pretty
Yeah.
dope. So I think that's
Established
starting to make a
cats.
comeback, the nostalgia of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But
So,
even but even but even non-established, we're just trying to build like they do that, and it's like a collector's item because you never know this guy could be famous.
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think those certain things will still help, but everything's technology, man. You gotta be online with this
you got
music,
to be
man.
on tech. All right.
Yeah.
So my last example of how I've seen hip hop change over the years is fashion. Okay. I'm ready to run through some fashion eras. Okay. I'm gonna tell
God,
you where I got
okay.
stuck. It's pretty easy. I would like to know which era you cats got stuck in.
You
All
gotta get
right.
this.
So first era, this is the 70s and the 80s, birth of hip hop. Yeah, tracksuits. I still got 2 Puma jackets right now.
Mm-hmm.
Tracksuits, Kango hats,
Yeah,
Adidas, oversized jackets, and bucket hats.
the big
My
dookie
bucket hat collection is
chain.
stupid. Like I just bought a Hamilton bucket hat last
Fire,
weekend.
fire.
So clearly that's the era that I was stuck in. Then you got the 80s, or I'm sorry, the 90s, the golden era. Baggy jeans, hoodies, baseball caps, Timberland boots,
Yeah,
thug
yeah.
life,
Yeah, the cargo fit, the military.
cargos, things
Yeah.
like that. The feminine tomboy style for the ladies, TLC, how they was rocking
Mhm.
stuff.
Can I mention
So
something?
that's
The
called the golden era. Go ahead.
the wicked thing I've noted in the golden era that was sort of Carcanon and W clothing, like the black owned independent clothing, which
That's
was
coming
being
up.
worn by artists. Go ahead.
That's coming up. That's coming up. So that still wasn't you. You guys wasn't baggy jeans and hoodies and baseball
Oh, I
caps. That's
was.
not you.
I,
Yeah, that's me.
I
That's you.
what back in New York when I was younger, it was a problem. Yeah, definitely.
That was what was your vice 3-2? What was your go-to
Um,
baggies? What was your go-to hoodies?
man, I remember it was like Fila at the time, like
Mhm.
because that was around like shoe wise. I remember that was when like the
Yeah.
Grant Hills were out, and
Ooh.
like
Okay.
I was rocking the Grant Hills, and there was a I was definitely into FUBU when it was fresh out. Like
Okay.
I had as
Fire.
much FUBU as I could get my hands on. Also, like just
Shout out
because I
LL.
didn't have a lot of money, like
Right.
that was one of the only brands that I could afford because hip hop brands were mad expensive. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get to like the Aniche and the Dadas and all that stuff.
Dude,
Like that
Ooh.
stuff
that's
was
that's what's coming next. And you know who did that?
hmm,
Jay-Z. Anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we go to late 90s all the way through 2000s, the bling era. Bling and the luxury era.
Yeah.
You got excessive jewelry, platinum, when Jay-Z was rocking platinum. You got the luxury brands and the logo mania, designer suits, statement accessories like fur coats and handbags and all that
Uh,
stuff.
uh-huh.
And you had those glamorous, shiny videos a la Diddy, right?
Late
Mhm.
90s. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Late
Shiny
90s
suit
and
era.
2000s. That's the bling era.
Mm-hmm.
Did y'all get caught up in the bling era?
Nah.
No, I was a kid. I was a kid. I think more when in the 90s because of what my mom was buying, but and what I seen the older kids do, I want to do. So,
Okay.
but nah, nah.
Well, up next came the 2010s, streetwear and sneaker culture.
I think you missed the
Rise
era.
of the streetwear brands. Streetwear brands such as Supreme, Off-White, BAP, BAPE,
Yeah.
Alice,
Babe and apes.
Bape. Bape, yeah.
Bape. Okay, you see where I was lost already.
That's for
Hmm.
that's I think that's for one of the Neptune Hugo Chad's company
Oh,
or his
you
brother
had
company.
high-end streetwear collaborators. You had the explosion of the sneaker culture, right?
Yeah.
Celebrity design sneakers, and this emphasis on individuality. I guess it's like Pharrell and whatnot when he was
Mm.
coming
Hmm.
up. So they call that what era did they call that? Streetwear and sneaker culture era.
Where did you get this from? Because I think they missed two things that I do
Yeah,
want to
there's
mention.
I feel like there's a era that they missed
Okay,
too.
well, come on with it.
From
I'm gonna
oh
let Jeff
six
hit it
to
first.
2010,
Talk to me.
you have that era of the down south coming with the baggy white shirt, the
Yeah.
big
Okay,
white shirt, the capri jeans.
okay,
In different places like New Orleans had the jabots and the soldieries and the soldier rag where they went the camouflage rag.
okay,
You just have those different things, and then in New York, it started the baggy jeans started leaving alone and the Tims, and you started
okay,
seeing Joel Santana, Jim Jones, and this is where Lil Yachty and ATL saying they took it, but you really see it. It was Dipset. They had the rock star chains, the skinny jeans, the Ferragamo. These are designer shit in New York that ASAP Rocky started bringing along in that 2010 era, like you're saying.
okay.
But it
All
was
right,
Dipset who started that shit.
all right.
Skull
Three
Gang and
two.
all
You
that.
said we missed something too.
Yeah.
What else did we miss?
In the cusp of the late 80s and early 90s, there was the pro-black movement, like with the Native
Ooh,
Tongues and Arrested Development, where you had a lot of like the Afrocentric dress.
the
Yeah,
Queen
African
yeah,
Latifah with the
pendants.
head, with the big
Yeah,
yeah.
hair hats and
yeah,
the
Kufis.
Africa pendants
yeah,
and the
Yeah,
yeah.
cross colors
yeah,
and all that stuff. Like I feel like,
yeah.
and that was where I
People were
started.
dreaded up.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I started, and then I ended up in the like '90s baggy clothes, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Okay. Last one, last era that I got this website. I don't even know what the website it is. I can link it later. 2020s, a blend of high fashion and streetwear, blurred lines between high fashion and streetwear, collaborations that shape fashion, emphasis on comfort and functionality. I'm trying to see if they give any examples of artists or anybody.
Like Virgil Blow with his off white because that became big too to this.
Or even
Okay.
even
Kanye and the Yeezys.
Kanye's, yeah, Yeezys, and his fashion line, where basically his fashion line was like making people look homeless, but it was like charging
Or like
$1,000.
slaves, real talk,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah,
Bugged out.
All right. Last era, this gender fluid era.
Oh
They
God.
basically Lil Nas X.
But,
mhm,
but you know what's crazy? They've been pushing that for a while now. It's just, it's been more accepted
yeah,
in policy and law that in land that, now it's in hip hop more. The painted nails. You see rappers with painted nails,
Yeah,
dresses, purses, like the
yeah.
feministic shit is wild to be pushing on men,
I remember when Young
you
Thug
know?
came out, he was I went one of his first videos he had on like a wedding dress or something like that with a
Yeah.
purse on.
His cover.
Yeah.
I remember that was a good album too, but yeah, his cover had that shit. Crazy.
So those are the ways that I've seen hip hop evolve. Clearly, I got stuck in bucket hat era, so I got left behind very quickly. But I love it. That's cool. It's
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
cool with
still
it.
in the
To
rock
each his
star
own.
area. I'm still in the rock star fashion trendy area and all that.
Yeah.
That's your jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
still
in
wearing
the
skinny
90s.
jeans.
I'm in the 90s
Dipset.
type of baggy. And because I got a big head, so only hats that fit me are fitted hats anyway, where I can get my specific size. So like
Right,
I just
right.
rock with what I got. So and I like to keep it simple. Like I've
uh,
always liked the simple look of like classic sneakers, like the
yeah,
suede
Mhm.
Pumas and
yeah.
certain Adidas and
I got
Reebok classics and
two
stuff
suede
like that.
pumas right now.
Yeah, yeah,
I stopped
Yeah.
wearing Adidas
yeah. I feel that.
completely.
Why?
The owners of it, the creators of it, they were part of the Third Reich in the Nazi Germany.
There you go. All
Yeah.
right. So anyway, that's our little walk down some of the evolution of hip hop. Next up, we're gonna do Gems you should know. Then we're gonna get up out of here. You should know. 3-2. Do you have the
Yes, I
bio
do.
for my man?
Yes, we do. All
All
right.
right.
So today we got Dapper Dan, otherwise known by his original name Daniel R. Day, born August 8th, 1944. He goes by the name Dapper Dan and is an American fashion designer, haberdasher from Harlem, New York. His store, Dapper Dan's Boutique, operated from 1982 to 1992 and is most associated with introducing high fashion to hip hop culture. Its clientele includes Mike Tyson, Eric B. and Rakim, Salt and Pepper, LL Cool J, and Jay Z, to name a few. In 2017, he launched a fashion line with Gucci, with whom he opened a second store and atelier, Dapper Dan's of Harlem, in 2018. I
Nice.
definitely
Dope.
Fire.
remember, yeah, I definitely remembered when he coined the look where he was taking like the high fashion patterns and
The
putting them
logos.
into like clothing items and sweatsuits and leather
Yeah.
jackets and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Dapper Dan. Yeah,
Hmm.
he did. Jackson, growing up in New York, was he still the man when you was coming up?
That was before my era. I think he was either chilling from a Fed case by
Yeah.
the time I
So
was, in New York and all that.
yeah. So the story that I know, born and raised in Harlem, street hustler, kind of got not ran out the streets, just a little scared straight from the streets, found that fashion clothing was his hustle. That was his jam. That's what he was good at.
Yeah.
So he left the streets to start doing clothes. Couldn't get a shop. Started selling clothes out the trunk of his car till he could get his own shop. His clientele became the drug dealers in Harlem mainly. Like if there's a interview with him. He's like, my best customer, the one who put me on the map, was the biggest drug dealer in Harlem at the time,
Rich
Jack.
Porter.
No, it
No.
was like Jack. I guess Alpo came. Whoever was right before Alpo, I remember him talking about it.
Hmm.
Anyway, he's like drug dealers and whatnot. Them was the cats who put me on, right? And then the question to him became, okay, now what rappers like put you on because you're really associated with rappers? And he's like, well,
Hmm.
the three most well-known rappers that put him on was probably Rakim,
Kim.
DMC from Run DMC,
Hmm.
and LL Cool J.
Okay.
He also he dressed the Fat Boys. He dressed
Mhm.
Salt and Pepper. This is all
Yup.
like crack cocaine to me. Like all these artists that he's dressing, these are like my like early heroes, right? This is
Yeah.
like an
Mhm.
all-star team of artists. So as I'm watching them and seeing them show up in magazines and whatnot, they're all rocking Dapper Dan.
Mhm.
Like it's just the wildest, and you can't get this stuff anywhere because it's all like custom
No.
made. He called it. He said I wasn't knocking off stuff, I was knocking up stuff because
Right, right.
his designs were not sold in stores. They were all custom made, which is what led to his problem, right? So he
Mhm.
kept doing that. He got popular. The labels brought a lawsuit against him, shut him down. For what's the when you violate the
Copyright
copyright
infringement.
copyright violations,
Mhm.
basically, right? So they
Infringement,
shut him
yeah.
down. That's when you were talking about like the Fed thing. He was like, I went from hustling on the streets to being the man, had a big 3-story store,
Mhm.
to being shut down and back on the streets selling clothes off of a vending table again. He's like,
Mhm.
I had that whole rise and fall. And he was down. He was down, not down bad, but he was down. And Gucci, like around 16, 15, 16, something like that, Gucci stole one of his early designs.
Mhm.
And everybody went crazy. They're like, yo, you shut my man down, but now here you are ripping him off. You shut him down saying he ripped you off. Now here you are ripping him off.
Mhm.
Gucci came correct. They went to him. They're like, yo, let's partner up. That's how he got that boutique that he's got now.
Mhm.
Or I think he's still alive. I hope he's not dead.
He is, he is,
Yeah, he's
he is
still alive.
alive.
Yeah. That's how he got the Gucci partnership because Gucci came correct and was like, rather than just cutting him a check or whatever, they brought him in. Now he's back on top. He's the man. I've never really, again, because his fashion was, like you said, 3-2. It's like it was too expensive for me. Plus, it was
Mhm.
It was all cut. You couldn't buy the stuff that you saw LL wearing. You
Right.
couldn't buy the stuff that you saw the Fat Boys rocking. You couldn't buy that iconic outfit that Salt and Pepper was wearing.
Mhm.
So even if I wanted to look like that, I couldn't do it. But people should know Dapper Dan. He's the man. He fashioned. He suited and booted like all of the early hip hop stars, and people should recognize his contribution to the culture. So
Definitely.
that's my you should know for this episode. Gems. Let's go to gems. Jex, how about you? You got a gem for us?
Hmm. Trying to think of something I probably heard recently. Um, I have to get back to you on that one.
All right, three,
Yeah.
two. You got a gem for us?
Yeah. For me, it's the show that on Netflix, The Get Down.
Mm.
Oh, okay. I haven't
So,
checked this one out.
so The Get Down is basically historical fiction in regards to like a forming hip hop crew in the early, like beginning stages of hip hop.
Okay.
So it's taking place in the Bronx. It's like with some young cats who are, in addition to their life things that they have going on, they're going to all these parties being hosted by Herc and referring to like Africa Bambaataa and throwing some parties
Mm,
on his side, and the difference between like the Zulu crew and some of the other crews vying for who's got the best MCs and stuff like that at the get downs and the parties, and also the intertwining between like when disco being on its way out while hip hop
mhm,
was on its way in, and the
mhm,
riff where people thought that like people into hip hop and that stuff thought that disco was whack, and that they
mhm.
called like they when they used the breaks from disco records, they called the singing part the whack part, and just referred to the breaks in it, but it like the storytelling in it was dope. Part of the reason, the best parts about it are also what ended up getting it canceled or discontinued, which is that like they did such great work with the cinematography and the wardrobe and all of that. And they
Yeah,
took a
they
lot
did.
of legitimate clips from film clips and things like that from the Bronx at that time
Okay.
and intertwining it into the cinematography of the overall show. But
Uh-huh.
but come to find out, part of the reason for that is because they spent like I think it was something like every episode was over $1 million to
Ooh.
Dang.
produce, and so it just became too expensive for them to do.
Uh,
But
yeah.
you could tell that the money went to a good place because the show itself was dope and the storytelling was dope. And I akin it to like with martial arts movies where
Yeah.
they use real life characters, but then they fictionalize their feats and they make them
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like that's a hip hop version of that. So you've got like they've got Herc, they've got Grandmaster Flash, they've got characters like that, and then they've got elements of the truthfulness of what was going on, but then also fictionalize a lot of it for dramatic effect, but in a way that's
Right.
tasteful. And I think like it's very true to hip hop in general.
Mhm.
Dope. What's it called again?
The Get Down,
Yeah.
And where's it at?
Netflix. It came out in
Netflix. Dope.
2016.
Dope.
I believe there's 2 seasons, and then it got discontinued before the second or before
Dope.
the
Dope.
third.
Dope. Dope. Jex, you owe us 2 gems next time, yo.
No, I got two right now.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
I got two that are 31 this year, actually this month. One that came out November 8th, 1993 by the Wu-Tang Clan, Enter the 36 Chambers.
Ah,
I think it's a gem because it was the start of what we see with these group and faction rappers who have different styles. Like it was no other. I was a kid, like I said, I wasn't even born. That was 2 weeks before I was born. But
okay.
growing up and listening to Wu-Tang, it's just so different styles and different, all in one. It's so dope. I
Right.
think that album definitely is something that I know young kids try to put me on the songs or they be playing and I'll be like, you know this one? So I
Hut
just
one,
heard,
hut two, hut three, hut. Old dirty bastard, live and
yeah. Yo, I
uncut.
had one of my boy Trizzy the Don, shout out Triz.
Yeah.
He was playing, we were chilling and he was playing Tears.
Yeah.
Or no, not Tears. Enter the seven chamber, playing in the
Okay.
front. This is on the
Yeah. Yeah.
front.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fire. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I knew that. It was like people grow on this Wu-Tang forever. So, and
What
then
else
the
you got?
November 23rd, the day before my birthday, 1993, Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg came out.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's a gem because when it goes on the musical tip and just flowing and
Yeah.
having
Dre's
fun,
incredible.
it's
Dre's
it's
incredible.
it's the both of them are just peanut butter and jelly. If you want
Yeah.
to hear, like despite the content, and that's on anybody's opinion. I like that type shit. Like Doggy
Yeah.
Style, I listen to every day on my birthday, or at least the day before, like every
Yeah.
single year. It's just energy.
Yeah. Dope. Those are
That's
two
just
good
so
ones.
energy.
Those are two good ones. I got 2 gems too. 3-2. This is gonna be right up your alley.
All right.
Boom boxes.
Mm,
All right. I got 2 boom boxes for the collectors out there. Okay. There's really only 2 iconic boom boxes in hip hop.
Lasonic.
Okay.
The first one is Radio Raheem's
Mm.
boom box.
Uh-huh. The Lasonic.
Holding it
Right?
like this. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Yep.
it's a Texonic J1 Pro Max Super Jumbo.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's called. I'll put a link and all this stuff in there.
Dope.
It's Radio Raheem's boombox. Right now, it's last I heard, it's at the National Museum of African American History and Culture.
Fire.
Right? D, motherfucker, D! Right? Gotta have Radio Raheem's boombox, the Texonic J1 Pro Max Super Jumbo.
Mhm.
Incredible rate. It's like a real thing. People thought it was just a prop, but it was a real
How many
box,
D
right?
batteries were in there, man?
Ooh, beats me, man.
That's
Beats me.
crazy.
But anyway, that's one. But the most iconic boombox in hip hop history, king of the boomboxes, is on the cover of LL Cool J's first album, Radio.
Wow.
It's the JVC RC M90.
Where's my phone? Oh, there's the phone. I want to look that up.
JVC RC
Yeah.
M90. King of the boombox. It's on the debut album of LL Cool J's album, Radio. Rolling Stone calls that the number it rated it as the 35th best album cover in hip hop history. LL Cool
Wow.
J's Radio. So those are my 2 gems for all you boombox collectors out there.
So I have a mini
Whoa.
replica of that.
Go ahead. Let me
Of
see.
which one?
Of the M90.
The JVC?
So
Can you
yeah,
show
so
us?
there's yeah. I have my
It's so dope.
boombox pendants that I
Yeah,
collect.
that's what I figured you
So
like this one.
so there was there was a collab. So there's a company called New Wave Toys, and they do like miniatures of certain things. And they got a
Okay.
miniature of the M90 in classic gray, and then Justin
Yeah.
Bua and Slick Rick had a collab joint for it, and it's like a purple, gold, and black, and
You got you got a replica of the M90.
a miniature. So
Okay. It's the king of the boom boxes, yo. That's the one.
Wow.
That's the one.
Wow. That is so dope, man.
I made like
That's
a
it.
bead chain to go with it. So like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know.
yeah,
Fire.
While my JVC vibrates the concrete. I'm
yeah,
sorry if you can't understand, but I need a radio inside
inside
my
my
hand.
hand.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah,
So
man.
those are the two gems that I got. We're gonna wrap it up, get out of here. Next, we're done with the 4 like foundational discussions about hip hop. We talked about the name, the culture, some of the origins of hip hop. Next, we're going to be moving into examining the core 4 arts in detail. And I think our next episode we will be covering the DJ.
Okay.
Cool. So appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for getting down.
Thank you. I always
And
love being here and
Yeah.
talking with y'all
yeah,
about
man.
this, man.
Absolutely.
And I think that's it. Again, thanks y'all for getting down. Thanks everybody for listening.
Salute.
Peace.
Peace out, y'all.